Hi everybody, sorry I'm a couple of minutes late, had a few technical problems, so hopefully this will work on my phone, and you have to excuse me if I flip between my phone and the computer a bit so I can see if you've got any questions or anything. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to talk to you a little bit about breastfeeding, and I'm going to signpost you to some groups and some resources that I hope that you'll find helpful, and just talk through a few little bits and pieces. First of all, I'll introduce myself. My name is Beth Wales. I am a member of the Oxfordshire OMVP, and I am a breastfeeding counsellor. So I trained with the Association of Breastfeeding Mothers about 3 years ago now. So I support women locally at Wantage Breastfeeding Support Group, and I also support on the National Breastfeeding Helpline. So if you ever ring the National Breastfeeding Helpline, you may get me, you may get one of many other hundreds of volunteers, but we are always here to support you if you have any questions or queries. So I will go through that later. So I'll just have a little check that we are all okay here. Let's get this up on the screen. Okay, well, what I will do is I will start running through some info that I've got for you, and then hopefully I'll be able to work out how to get to your questions as and when I need to. So I just wanted to start by saying, obviously we are in some strange times at the moment, but I wanted to reassure anybody out there who's trying to breastfeed or planning to breastfeed that despite these circumstances you're not alone. It is possible to still access support, and that support might look a little bit different to how it looked before we went into lockdown, but there are lots and lots of people out there who are really keen to help you and want to help you. So let's look at some of the places where you can access that support if you need to. So first of all, you may well have watched the great Facebook Lives that the infant feeding midwives have done on here. They have provided some fantastic information, really reliable sources, and you know, they are brilliant people. So definitely check those out, and if you need their support, all you need to do is Google the infant feeding team at John Radcliffe. You'll get some information come up, and their phone number is on there, and their email address as well. So they would definitely be a good first port of call. And of course you will have contact details for your midwife or health visitor, who you can contact directly as well. And then I wanted to signpost you to the Oxfordshire Breastfeeding Support, who are an amazing organisation that run normally lots of drop-in groups all around Oxfordshire, and they are currently doing one-to-one support via video or by phone, and if you go to their website there's a really easy way of clicking through and accessing that support. They also have a private Facebook group so you can ask questions on there. They're running antenatal sessions as well if anyone's pregnant, and they're doing happy hours as well, which is a nice way to kind of chat with other breastfeeding mums and get to know some other mums who may be at a similar stage to you. You can also look for La Leche League Oxfordshire. They've got a Facebook group and they're doing Zoom meetings, so you can still kind of get together with the little community and get to know some people. Abingdon Baby Cafe is another great place to go to. You can go on their Facebook page and they are running I think it's FaceTime appointments on Thursdays, I think that's right. So anyway, if you click on their Facebook page you can find them. National Breastfeeding Helpline, which I mentioned just at the beginning, they are open 9:30 AM till 9:30 PM every day. That is staffed by volunteers, so if you can't get through first time, just keep trying, because there will be someone there at some point during the day. But I know that we've answered hundreds of calls, loads more calls than normal recently. So if it's busy, just bear with us, and someone will pick up. And then there is the ABM helpline, NCT helpline, and the La Leche League helpline as well. And you can find all of those online. So I know I'm bombarding with loads of different organisations and things, but I just want to make sure that people know that there's lots of different types of support out there. So there's Facebook groups, there's video calls, there's phone lines, and then you've still got your midwives and health visitors as well. And you can also, if you need some specialist support, you can contact a lactation consultant, an IBCLC. And again, if you Google that, there's a find an IBCLC, and you can find someone locally who will have some really specialist knowledge about breastfeeding if you need that support. So hopefully that will help. I just want to be sure that everything's okay on here. So I'm just going to have a little look. Let's see. Thank you for letting me know it's working. Let's see. Right, so back to where we were. I wanted to I think the infant feeding midwives in their lives have touched brilliantly on the golden hour, which is the first hour after you've had your baby, keeping baby nice and close, lots of skin to skin, and getting breastfeeding started. So I'm going to move on a bit from that stage, because you will more than likely have some support at that point from a midwife, and I wondered if people might be looking for more information about a little bit further down the line, so maybe day 2, day 3, when you're at home. Perhaps this is all new to you and you're wondering what to do. So first of all, I think one of the positives actually of lockdown, if you've just had a baby, is you're going to get lots of time at home with you, and if there's a partner or other family members or friends in your house, you have an amazing opportunity to do lots of bonding, and having baby nice and close, getting to know your little person, and without the concern that someone's going to knock on the door and you're going to be in your pyjamas and all that kind of stuff. You know, that's not going to happen. You've got this opportunity to really bond and get to know baby, and we know that if baby is close to the parents in those first sort of few weeks, that is an ideal way of getting breastfeeding really well established. There's no other smells or sights, or baby is entirely focused on you and a partner or family member. So from that point of view, that is definitely a positive. So if you can, as much skin to skin as you possibly can in those early weeks, that is just an amazing way to get breastfeeding started. So you're going to strip off baby, strip off you, make sure you're comfortable, warm enough, and then just let baby explore. So don't put any pressure on yourself when you're doing skin to skin. It should be a nice, calm, relaxed environment, and just see what happens, because sometimes we can get ourselves really quite stressed or worked up about breastfeeding, and the best thing that we can possibly do is just try and relax those shoulders, try and calm, take some big deep breaths, skin to skin, and just see if baby will just make his or her way to the breast and try and latch on. So if you're feeling stressed, or if you're just not quite sure what to do, skin to skin is always the answer, and just see what happens. And there is a great resource called Building a Happy Baby, which gives you lots of information about kind of bonding with baby, and it covers kind of all that side of things. So you can search for Building a Happy Baby. That's a UNICEF document. Brilliant, really nice document to read. And that's a nice thing to read as well if you're pregnant and just kind of thinking about bonding with baby and how that might look. And I think it's great to just expect that you're going to be feeding a lot in the first trimester, in the fourth trimester, we call it. So it's the first 12 weeks after baby's born. There may be patches when you feel like you're sitting on the sofa an awful lot feeding, and that is good. That is all good. The more baby feeds, the better, because what baby is doing is building up a milk supply. So you keep baby close, and then if baby is looking to feed, just feed. Don't worry about looking at the clock. Look at your baby. If baby wants to feed, feed. But we're looking for baby feeding frequently because we obviously want to make sure that baby's getting enough milk. So it's great to get to know your baby's feeding cues a little bit, and if we can work this out, I'll try and show you this, which is a little picture that shows how baby looks. We're looking for baby to ask for feeds by moving his or her eyes and wriggling and waving around lots, rooting, so mouth open, kind of looking for the breast with his or her mouth, sucking fists, blankets, so just kind of sucking anything nearby, and making little murmuring noises, so these lovely little baby noises that newborns make. Crying is going to be the baby's last resort, so if baby is crying, then we want to be thinking about working backwards. So next time, we don't want to get to the crying stage. We're going to try and get to baby a little bit earlier, when baby's moving her eyes or having a little wriggle, just starting to be a little bit restless. That might be when we want to start thinking about offering the breast. So let's have a look. And I will definitely come back to questions, so bear with me, okay, and I'll do questions at the end because I really want to help if I can. Let's see, just get back to my bit before. Okay, so I think the next point that I really wanted to make, so we've talked about baby being close, looking out for those early feeding cues. And now I just want to talk a bit about if breastfeeding is uncomfortable. In those early days, I think when we're on the National Breastfeeding Helpline, we get a lot of calls from parents in those early days saying something hurts, doesn't feel right, and there are some small changes that sometimes we will suggest on the helpline, and I'm sure you'll get the same info wherever you access your support from. But just some little tweaks that hopefully will make a difference and make it more comfortable when you're breastfeeding. Breastfeeding shouldn't hurt. Sometimes it can feel a bit stretchy, a bit pulley in the first few days, whilst things are just kind of settling down and your body's getting used to having a little person feeding from you. Perhaps it hasn't done it before and it might all feel a bit new, and that's okay and totally normal. But if you are actually physically in pain, you probably do want to look for a little bit of support, and often it's a little thing and then you will have this like breakthrough eureka moment, and then breastfeeding will progress. So I'm not going to bombard you with loads of info because I don't think that will work hugely well in this context, but I want you to know that you can access that support and ask your questions to someone trained to help you with that. But just the very basics, we're going to be talking about taking baby to the breast. So often what we'll do is we'll have our baby, I should have had a baby doll with me, but we'll have baby in our arms, and we'll be so focused on getting baby on to feed that we will get baby on, and then we'll think, oh, this is actually really uncomfortable for me, and then you're stuck, because if you move, that can become painful, and we don't want pain. So what we need to focus on is getting ourselves comfortable first. So however that looks for you, get yourself comfortable, and maybe someone else can hold baby while you're doing that, and then you're going to bring baby in towards you so that you're going to be comfortable for a feed, particularly in those early days when a feed could go on for quite some time, and you're chilling out, have a cup of tea, watching a box set, you know, that all of that is really important and will make you feel more relaxed. And if you're relaxed, baby's more likely to be relaxed. So you've got your shoulders relaxed, you're sitting back in your comfiest position, and then you work out, how could I feed in this position? And you're going to bring baby to something that is comfortable for you. There are lots of different positions you can try. I know we often see like the normal standard cradle carry, but there are loads of different ways of doing it. So by all means, have a Google and look at different positions, work out what works for you and baby. You may need cushions, you may not need cushions. Everybody's different and we're all built differently. So what works for one person may not work for someone else, and that's okay. It's all normal. So that's when you'll hear people talking about positioning and attachment. So there we're talking about the positioning. We're talking about how you're going to position yourself and on what position is comfortable for you to feed in. And then you might hear people talking about attachment, and that's how baby is getting onto the breast, so how baby is going to breastfeed. We want baby to come to the breast chin first. So not sure how easy it is to see here really. If you've got one of these Off to the Best Start booklets, which I believe everybody should get when they are discharged from hospital, that has got a really helpful, let me find it here, some helpful photos, which it's definitely worth looking at. Get your partner or a family member or friend to have a look with you and just try and work on the latch and how baby attaches, because I would say a huge amount of support that we give is just helping people to latch on. You're learning a new skill, a baby's learning a new skill, and it can take time. But if you kind of persevere with trying to do all of these important steps, making sure that baby comes to the breast chin first. So I know you can't really see this, but if you can Google it, and I'll put in the comments some good videos that you can watch which show a really good latch on, so you know what attachment should really ideally look like. So baby's coming chin first and is really nice and close to you. So any clothing that's in the way, just get rid of it. Get rid of dressing gown ties and pyjamas and anything. Just that skin to skin is going to really help, and the closer baby is to you, the better. And we're looking for baby having a straight line, so from the head sort of down the back, the spine needs to be straight. This baby needs to be comfy, and if I'm all hunched up like this and I'm trying to feed, it's not comfy. If I was trying to drink some water even, that wouldn't be a comfy way. So we're thinking about how baby is nice and straight and able to take those nice big gulps of your delicious milk. So baby is nice and in line. And I will share that video that shows some attachment stuff, which I hope might help. So yeah, that is a really, really basic overview of attachment and positioning, but if you've got any little niggles, definitely get some support, because niggles can be helped, and we can do those things on the phone and by video even easier, so we can definitely still support with that even if we can't see you in person. So the next thing that I just wanted to mention is, I know that some people have been concerned that they are not able to get baby weighed perhaps as much as normal. I actually don't know if that is the case in Oxfordshire, but I have heard that people are quite concerned about how do you know that baby is having enough milk, and I'm sure midwives will have gone through this with you, but nappies are the key. So once we have babies, we start talking about wee and poo lots, and this again, in this Off to the Best Start, there is a great we find it thing about so if you look for this page 17, how do I know my baby is getting enough milk? It talks about how in the first 48 hours you're looking for 2 or 3 wet nappies, and then they become more frequent. So we're looking for at least 6 wet nappies every 24 hours from about day 5. And when people say, how do I know if it's wet? You can feel when the nappy is wet. If you've got a completely dry nappy, it will just be like a nappy that you've just put on. And there are various tests and things that you can do. You know, I can't remember what they are actually, but if you Google it, you could find there are ways to work out if a nappy is definitely wet enough. And then we're looking at poos are a fantastic way of telling if baby's getting milk, because they change so dramatically in those first few days. So day 1, you've probably done this, but if you're pregnant, you may not know this, you will have a black, that baby will have a black poo, and that's called meconium. And by day 3, it starts getting runnier and more green, and day 4, and for the first few weeks, your baby should be doing 2 or more yellow stools a day. So in those first few days, we're changing from black, and then it gets lighter and runnier and kind of a greeny colour. It's so lovely, isn't it? And then it turns into a kind of mustardy yellow, basically. And actually, once we get that mustardy yellow poo, we know that your milk is transferring really well, that baby's getting milk and everything's changing and going as it should. So most babies will do lots of poos, and that's, you know, that's a sign that things are going really well. So yeah, I think it's really worth kind of getting into your head what the wee and poo thing, because that is just the best way to tell that baby is getting the milk that he or she needs. So yeah, and also the NCT if you search NCT baby poo, they have a really good website page that shows photos of the different stages of nappies. So brace yourself if you're a bit squeamish and don't like poo beforehand, because you'll love it by the end. And you can go through that. So that should be great. So yeah, I'll have a look at your questions next, but I just wanted to say that no one expects you to know everything. When you start breastfeeding, if you have any questions, even if they seem little and you're like, oh, am I silly to ask this? You're not silly, and we've heard them all before. And you're learning something new, baby's learning something new. It's entirely normal to have loads of questions, and there are people who will help answer those questions. And you don't have to solve problems by yourself or know all the answers. You know, we will help you and support you with that, even if you think you know, but you're not entirely sure and you just want to check. Totally normal. Phone somebody and chat it through. And there will always be someone around who will be able to help you. And there are some great Facebook groups as well, actually, that are worth kind of looking up, with lots of experienced people who should be able to help. So bear with me just a moment, and I will just have a look at your questions. Let's see. Yeah, okay, so hi Rachel. You were asking how long women should kind of persevere if they're having difficulties. Well, we're all different, aren't we? So I guess it's quite hard to give a specific amount of time to persevere. I guess as long as baby is putting on weight and is producing those nappies that we spoke about before, and as long as mum is comfortable with her decision. So we talk a lot where there's no pressure. As soon as people start feeling pressured to breastfeed, you know, that can have lots of negative impacts on them. So definitely do not feel pressurised into breastfeeding. Make your own choice, make an informed choice, read stuff, talk about stuff, and then work out what is right for your family. I wouldn't give an exact time that people should persevere, because everybody is different, but give someone a call and chat it through. If you're having problems, you know, talk to somebody, see if you can come up with some solutions that work for you, give the solutions a try, and then see what happens. So I hope that helps. Okay. Da, 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 da. Okay, so sorry, is it Aya or Aya? Sorry, how important is it for breastfeeding that we get the help supervision right at the start? So she was talking about how at the moment partners can't stay, so she's hoping to leave hospital as soon as possible, but is concerned about accessing support. I think if before you leave, if you're able to have a chat with a midwife about breastfeeding, perhaps do some breastfeed with them, with their support, and see if there are any little tweaks that they've got, suggestions to start with. I think as long as you remember those key messages of keeping baby skin to skin as much as possible, breastfeeding, you'll hear people saying breastfeeding on demand, which is an interesting term, but that's another story, about breastfeeding to those feeding cues. So when you're seeing those feeding cues, when you're seeing baby starting to get just a little bit restless, if you're starting to feed then, you're doing lots of skin to skin, then those are the important things to bear in mind in those first few days. And remember, even once you've left hospital, you're not alone, so you can always phone someone and chat stuff through. Yeah, I hope that helps. But I think it's just one of those cases of seeing, you know, every birth's different, of course, as well. So just wait and see, but know that you can get that support afterwards as well if you need it. Okay, so we're talking about jaundice 3 days after birth. Does this mean I'm not feeding often enough, or there could be a problem with milk transfer? So jaundice 3 days after birth. I think yeah. So the ideal with jaundice from a breastfeeding point of view is that you need to breastfeed as much as possible. The more that you can breastfeed, the better, basically. It's not something you've done wrong, but don't think that. But the more that you can breastfeed, the better. I would say probably day 3, we're probably not too concerned about milk transfer at that stage, because your milk may still just be about to come in, or perhaps it's just come in. Normally the real good milk, the real thick milk, so once on day 3 the milk will come through a bit more, and that's when we might start seeing more of a problem with the milk transfer. I think probably just following midwife's guidance on that. Obviously it's quite a specialised kind of more of a midwife thing. Don't feel like you've done anything wrong, but just keep feeding as much as you can. Okay. Yeah, absolutely. No, I totally agree with Regina. She says that says that seeking help from a professional is best, but that remote help is really useful. I absolutely agree. And yeah, you mentioned a great breastfeeding group. Actually, breastfeeding younger babies and beyond is a great breastfeeding group, and there are breastfeeding counsellors on that group as well. So you know that support that you're accessing is being monitored by breastfeeding counsellors, which I think is probably an ideal situation, because you're getting that peer support from other mums, but you're also getting a little bit of professional guidance as well. And that's great to hear that the Abingdon midwives team and Baby Cafe have been brilliant. And good for you, 2.5 years breastfeeding, planning on 10 feeding, so that's fantastic. Joanna, is there anywhere to park at the JR for people in labour? I don't know the answer to that. I'm sorry, I'm not based at the JR. It's not a silly question. I totally get that you don't want to clog up their phone line, but perhaps someone else may know the answer. If you know the answer, perhaps you could just jot it down for Joanna. She's just asking about parking at the JR. So yeah. Vicky is saying she breastfed for 2.5 years, but that was 13 years ago, so she was nervous about doing it again. Will it come naturally? Yeah, absolutely. Vicky, you know, you've done a brilliant job, I guess, with your last baby, even if that was a while ago. Every baby's different. I've got 3 babies, and all of our breastfeeding journeys have been different, and sometimes life will throw in a curveball which will confuse you a little bit, which it did for me with one of ours, but we got through that. And I think approach it in how I can do this because my body's done it before, and just see how things go. We are mammals, and for most of us it will be a natural, easy thing once we've got used to this new thing, and for some of us it doesn't, and that's okay too. And you know, just want people to know that if they need that support, then they can get that support. So good luck. Do babies always have to burp when breastfeeding, and what about them falling asleep while breastfeeding? Should we keep them awake? You hear quite a lot of different information about burping and breastfeeding. I think the current advice would be that we're not too concerned about burping after breastfeeding, but it depends on baby. So some babies may take in quite a lot of air when they're feeding, and they certainly do when they're bottle feeding, which is why you have to burp bottle fed babies. But generally, if you've got a really good latch with a baby, so if baby is latched on really well, they may well not need burping, but every baby is different, and if they seem uncomfortable after a feed, it's definitely worth burping. And you may find, you know, one day you try it and actually that makes baby more comfortable, so then you may want to do it after every feed. But yeah, it's baby by baby really, and try it. It's not going to hurt to burp them, but if you suddenly realise they're absolutely fine after a feed and don't need burping, you don't need to do it. Sorry, I've lost your question here, just a second. Falling asleep while breastfeeding, yes. Babies are in their happy place when they're breastfeeding, so they feel safe and secure and loved, and they will often fall asleep, and generally that's absolutely fine, and completely normal, and it's only going to be if we're concerned at all about baby's weight gain, we might want to be tickling baby, keeping baby awake, so that we make sure that baby gets a good long feed. But it's also a great tip to try both sides when you're feeding. So if you feed, if baby falls asleep and comes off, by all means swap them over, see if they'll get latch on again, and feed a bit more. But very normal for baby to fall asleep at the breast. But if you're concerned at all about weight gain, or if you just think, I don't think that was quite long enough, give them a little tickle, undress them a little bit, and then hopefully you'll wake them up enough that they will just naturally latch on again, and continue feeding. Do you recommend colostrum harvesting? I think, firstly, the infant feeding midwives, I think it was the first live they did a brilliant little bit about colostrum harvesting, which I definitely recommend you watching if you're thinking about harvesting colostrum. So if anybody doesn't know what that is, that's when you collect that delicious early golden milk, which is just really good for them. Some people will harvest milk before baby's born if they're anticipating that they might have some issues after baby's born, and some people just decide to do it, but it's quite a complicated thing that I won't start going into now, but I think have a look at that first live infant feeding midwives do, and see if you think that's something that you need to do. Certainly not something that you need to do if everything is straightforward, and as far as you know the birth will be straightforward and all will be well after the birth. So if you're not expecting any problems, you don't need to harvest your colostrum. But if you think you might need to, then you know there's loads of support that you can get around that. Can you drink any alcohol when breastfeeding? And are there any good foods you can eat to boost milk production? So the alcohol when breastfeeding thing, there's a great, if you search for the Breastfeeding Network and alcohol, there's a really helpful sheet so that you can make an informed choice about alcohol and breastfeeding. And so I'll leave that with you. So it's Breastfeeding Network and alcohol, really fantastic fact sheet, and then you can decide for yourself what you think works and what you think doesn't work for you and baby. And foods for boosting milk production. So we'll hear a lot about oats being really good for boosting milk production. So you may well hear of these lactation cookies and people saying, "Oh, eat lots of oats and things." Some of that is anecdotal, but for some women it makes them feel like they're doing something positive, and if that works, then by all means, you know, there's no harm in it. There aren't really, and as far as I know, I don't think there is any scientific evidence that any particular food will boost your supply, and the best thing that we can do is that skin to skin and keeping baby close are the real keys to boosting milk supply, so that baby's feeding lots. Remember that supply and demand thing, the more baby feeds, the more your body will make, more milk your body makes. Okay, so I hope that helps. Okay, sorry, just reading a question. Overcried feeding, but I've just got sleep during 4 weeks, desperate to breastfeed. Yeah, so I never had enough milk. Yeah, so I think if you've got colostrum, generally that colostrum will change into milk. Having a C-section should not impact your milk supply unless you've had a shock and you are not feeling well and everything is a bit tricky, in which case loads of support, so it shouldn't be because of the C-section that you couldn't feed your last baby, but hopefully if you've got colostrum and you are able to do skin to skin and feeding this time round, then hopefully the milk supply will come through. And remember, it does take a few days, so day 3 is generally when milk comes through. So for some women it's day 4, and that's totally fine. But if you are concerned that the milk's not coming through, then give someone a call and chat it through. Yeah, and hopefully this time, you know, things will go smoothly for you, Cheryl. I've covered burping, so I hope that's okay, Sandra. So don't worry too much about burping unless you feel baby needs burping. And if baby does need burping, yeah, it's just that age-old trick of on your shoulder and patting and rubbing, and you know, hopefully baby will bring up a burp if baby needs to. If baby is unsettled after a feed and won't burp and can't burp, have you thought about trying the other side, just putting baby back on the breast, remembering there are patches in the day, particularly the evenings, when baby may well be very restless and just want to continuously be on the breast. So yeah, trying all of those tips hopefully. Let's see. So hopefully we'll see that my husband dropped me off at the entrance. This is about the JR. So where the ambulances go, then went to park. Yeah, so hopefully parking's actually easier at the moment. I guess less people going into hospital. So yeah, hopefully that will help. And there are tours on the Facebook page apparently, so hopefully you can access those. Okay, Gemma, you were asking if it's true that women with PCOS, polycystic ovaries, struggle with milk supply. I think I think actually, Gemma, if you don't mind, I'm not going to go into that now because I don't have my resource book to hand and I don't want to give you the wrong information. I will look it up for you and I will reply in the comments because I want to be sure that what I'm saying is correct. So I hope that helps. So I think I will leave it there if I've answered everybody's questions. Yeah, I think that's all of them. If I haven't answered your question, can you just give me a quick ping, send me a message now, and I'll just double check. Yeah, I think that's everything. So I hope that was helpful, and I will pop in the comments that link to that video about attachment, and so remember those places where you can get support, and look after yourselves and your babies, and I hope things go smoothly for you. So do take care, everybody. Bye.